What's up? A to Z Sports Live on a Thursday. Apologies for the late start today. I take the blame for this one, but we're live here on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch, talking a lot of Titans conversations and using some of our friends' content over at 1045 The Zone, who had a couple of really interesting interviews. Great content coming out of the morning show on 1045 The Zone with Ramon, Kayla, and Will. And then we'll play Burke Nihill, Titans president and CEO, on the background, the details, an inside look at the marriage between Brian Callahan and Titans now executive vice president and general manager Rand Carthon and the new head coach. And we'll talk about that. A great conversation to have about some of Burke Nihill's comments yesterday. Also diving into the fiery comments of former Titans linebacker Wesley Woodyard, who went in on former head coach Mike Vrabel. Those were interesting, to say the least. We'll play that video later on. The magic bucket is in my closet, which is out of my reach across the office, so I will have to scramble and get that at some point throughout the show. But hey, the Wesley Woodyard video is phenomenal, so I'll go make a mad dash to the closet during that. So, Jack, welcome in. We're going to have a heck of a show here. Wesley Woodyard got a lot of people talking yesterday, so that'll be a fun comment and conversation during the middle of the show. What's going on?
Yeah, absolutely. Fired up to talk about the Ranahan era, baby. While you guys are trickling in, let's make sure to like the show. There's already over 150 of you in here, just 1 minute in. Only 10 likes. Let's bump those numbers up, especially you Facebookers. Let's try and get to 100 likes here on the show today. Let's also share the show if we're watching on Facebook. So share it to your Titans groups. I know all of y'all are talking in those groups this week. It's a fun week to be a Titans fan. It's kind of the first time I've been able to say that in quite a while. But go ahead and share that show into your Facebook groups if you're watching on YouTube. Tap the bell icon at the top of your screen and turn those notifications on, because I'm telling you, you're not going to want to miss a second of A to Z Sports content this week. Stay up to date. Turn your notifications on YouTube. Finally, if you're watching on Twitch, text that Twitch link to your Titans text groups. Text to anybody who wants to learn more about this marriage between Brian Callahan and Rand Carthon. It's going to be interesting to figure these things out as we go. We're going to do our best to inform you as much as we can. We've got some great information coming in today via interviews. So text that Twitch link around for anybody who's still curious about the Titans hire. We want to get everybody in here. We want to get everybody's opinion. So let's get the chat rolling. Let's stay hot today, chat. Austin, let's get the show on the road.
Yep, let's do it officially. Welcome into A to Z Sports, powered as always by the BetMGM app. I'm Austin Stanley. He is Jack Gentry of the Tighten Up Podcast, and we are Nashville's on-demand sports talk network, going live weekday mornings at 8 Central Time on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch. Links to the show on our segment by segment on our Twitter X timeline at A to Z Sports. Also hit us up on Instagram, TikTok, and Threads for more great Titans content. We got to thank our sponsors because they make it happen for us, and they help out all of you, like Wilson County Hyundai. Make them a part of your new car buying process by seeing them in Lebanon or online at wilsoncountyhyundai.com. The Bone and Joint Institute, boneandjointtn.org, the region's destination for comprehensive orthopedic and sports medicine care. Farm Bureau Health Plans. Get better with Farm Bureau Health Plans at fbhp.com/ATOZ. And Krebs Kubota, an elite Kubota dealer with 3 great locations across the mid-state, Columbia, Murfreesboro, and in Franklin. They are online at KrebsKubota.com. Jack, before we dive into the Burke Nihill comments and play you those videos, I did want to share the statement from Amy Adams Strunk on her new head coach yesterday. This is an exciting time for our franchise, and we're thrilled to have Brian Callahan as the head coach. We went through a candidate search, and Brian stood out as the best person to lead our football team. I want to thank the other candidates who were part of the process and wish them well moving forward. Brian has a track record of success and a range of experience that has prepared him for this opportunity. His football knowledge and his enthusiasm for the game really stand out. And beyond that, we think his ability to lead will make him the ideal fit for the Titans franchise. So that's Amy Adams Strunk, Jack, on her comment there. She also used flexibility and intelligence, words to use for Brian Callahan that stood out to me. Flexibility of not just being stuck in your ways, that maybe somebody previously was, that we'll talk about later with Wesley Woodyard's comment. But Jack, I just want to give a roadmap of what today is going to be here on A to Z Sports. So obviously we're live right now, just getting going 5 minutes into this show that's probably going to be roughly an hour, talking a lot about what Burke Nihill said and what Wesley Woodyard said yesterday on 104.5 The Zone. And then at 1 o'clock, Brian Callahan's press conference will be live. We will have content from that right up on our YouTube channel, our Facebook, our Instagram, and beyond. And then Sam will be live shortly after that for his Titans at 2 show. As quickly as Sam can go live, he will do that on these same channels. And then Buck Rising live tonight for A to Z Sports Primetime. So we've got that all day. So Brian Callahan at 1, Sam shortly after, as soon as he can after that for Titans at 2, and then Buck right around 8 p.m. tonight. So locked and loaded day here on A to Z Sports. But let's hear from Burke Nihill, Jack, on really the beginning of his conversation with Ramon, Kayla, and Will on 104.5 The Zone yesterday about this process that ended with Brian Callahan.
Yeah, Brian Callahan is the template, just plain and simple. We started off going into this search trying to be disciplined about creating a profile. You know, before you start putting names to it, before you start doing the research on experience, what specifically were we looking for? And it was character traits, it was experience sets, it was league reputation, league network, and from the beginning, Brian Callahan, from the research, was at the top of that list. And as the interview process played out, I think we interviewed 9 people and a ton of impressive candidates in that mix. But from the very beginning, Brian started with a lead and ended with a lead. He just was exactly what we were looking for to partner with Rand Carthon to build a consistent championship contender.
So there's Burke Nihill, president and CEO of the Tennessee Titans. Very smart guy. And like Jack, we're going to have more conversations than going back to the Burke Nihill conversation because there were so many good tidbits that Burke had yesterday, but that was one that kind of set the table for what this partnership, not collaboration, but what this partnership is going to be between Rand Carthon and Brian Callahan, as you have coined, the Ranahan era is off and running.
Absolutely, it is. And man, is Burke Nihill not the most impressive person you've ever heard in that interview? I mean, just his intelligence and how he laid everything out. He explained the vision and why they held it back. He said, well, we wanted to get the head coach's opinion because, we can have a vision, but if the head coach sees things a little bit differently, we might agree to that vision. And a merger of these, multiple visions ends up being the Super Bowl vision. So I liked a lot of what he said. He really instilled confidence in me in that the Titans have this thing right moving forward. And we'll see. Brian Callahan also, laid out in that interview, Burke Nihill explained that when it became kind of an open discussion on how to start fixing things, Callahan said, this is what we want our X receiver to look like. This is what we want our Y receiver and Z receiver to look like. I think that is so important that he's stressing playmakers there because, since in the 25 years the Titans have been in town, feels like they've only had 4 or 5 big time receivers, right? And a couple of them have come recently. B. Mace, Nate Washington. I don't know if you call him big time, but he surely was effective here while he was here. And then A.J. Brown, and now you've got DeAndre Hopkins. The well has been dry at that position. So for Callahan, Amy Adams-Strunk, Burke Nihill, and Rand Carthon all to sit down in the same room on this second meeting when they're getting serious and talk wide receivers, it gets me excited.
Well, let's hear that clip because we've got that for you. And this was the really impressive back and forth of how this interview with Brian Callahan turned into the beginning of everything.
Brian was the last in-person interview. It started off as an interview, right? People asking Brian questions, Brian answering the questions. At some point, Amy Adams-Strunk, Kenneth Adams, myself, Rand, Chad Brinker, Anthony Robinson are in the room. And at some point, that interview changed from an interview to a workshop on how they were going to build this thing. It just naturally evolved into it. Rand and Brian went from Rand asking questions, Brian answering questions, to them just riffing and getting excited, and everybody was sitting up in their chair, listening to them talk about, for example, we're not looking for guys that are going to fall into a 1, 2, 3 receiver bucket. We're looking for what defines our perfect X receiver in this system, what defines our perfect Z receiver in this system, to the inch, to the weight, to the athleticism score. When do you take an exception, and how does a coach need to buy into an exception, and how many exceptions can you have on a team? And these guys were just building a program to end an interview. We hadn't extended an offer yet. Brian didn't know it was his job, but it was the beginning of the next generation of Titans football. That's vision, right? Is them talking together about how we're going to get where we need to go, which is delivering to Nashville a championship caliber team consistently.
So Burke Nihill, I think, laying out, it's, they didn't answer, Rand Carthon didn't answer the vision questions that happened at the press conference after Vrabel was fired, right? Because the vision happens when you get the napkin conversations, like the restaurant napkin conversations, when you start getting a pen out and writing stuff down on that little square, like beer mug napkin, that's when stuff happens. That's when the real vision starts to get laid out. And you have to be able to have the conversations with that person to truly develop the vision further. You might have the parameters of what you want the vision to be, but until the person's in the seat, that's when you can start going through the details. I thought that conversation with Burke and that comment where Burke was interesting. And you saw Ramon Foster's head when Ramon Foster heard Burke Nihill say, how many exceptions can you have on a team? And Ramon goes, because doesn't it feel like the Tennessee Titans have had way too many exceptions? Way too many exceptions to the rule, like NWI, undrafted free agent wide receiver, being forced in a number 2 or 3 spot on this roster, or the exception of Jack Gibbons, an undrafted guy trying to play inside linebacker, or not, keeping somebody because they stick too hard to what they want to do. Like they don't have the athletic profile of explosive teams. They kept saying they want to be faster, but did they really get faster? They had too many guys that were good blockers that were exceptions rather than what the receiver needs to look like. I thought that was really interesting.
I do too, and it's what Titans fans should be excited to hear, because you want to modernize this offense. You want to make it start to look like some of the better offenses around the league. Some of these, these last 4 teams playing in the NFL right now, they've got great receivers, they've got great quarterbacks, they've got great running games. So Brian Callahan, I think that's cool, because going into that interview, I'm sure that the Titans brass had a general idea of what they wanted this new roadmap to look like. But it sounds like Brian Callahan might have piqued their interest to some new ideas or some new tendencies or some new ways of looking at things or players as well. It's cool to hear that Burke Nihill say that they were on the edge of their seats. They were sitting up there like, oh, yeah, now we're talking. Like, this guy knows what he's doing. And a lot of people are knocking him for not calling plays. Well, it seems like he had, at least somewhat of a say in personnel up in Cincinnati. I know it's Zach Taylor's call being the head coach, but it's Callahan that put the offense together. So he had to have had some type of impact up there. And he knows the type of guys he's looking for when they're already talking about, the length of their arms and how fast they are. It just feels like Callahan's the guy who comes in and, you don't really have to tear everything down, but it feels like he's hitting the ground running, and the Titans are ahead of the 8 ball by hiring Callahan.
All right, so let's get to this conversation here. We're going to ask you guys a question, get you more involved. We'll play again some Burke Nihill videos about his conversation about Carthon and Brian Callahan from yesterday. But here's the question. What's your confidence level in Rand Carthon and Brian Callahan to build the Titans into a true contender on a 1 through 10? We like doing the 1 through 10 confidence levels questions. What is your confidence level in Rand and Brian Callahan to build the Titans into a true contender? Because that's what Burke said yesterday. So we'll get to your confidence levels here in a second. But first, I want to tell everybody about our great friends at Krebs Kubota. Krebs Kubota, an elite Kubota dealer with 3 great locations across the mid-state, Columbia, Franklin, and in Murfreesboro. Being an elite Kubota dealer means you have the best equipment and the best warranties in the industry, because you've got the direct line access to Kubota, that is the best brand nationally. And then you get the best local coverage for your equipment and the Krebs family name, because Krebs Kubota has been serving Middle Tennessee for over 18 years, family owned and operated, growing and doing a great job with customer service that allows them to grow from just Columbia to adding Murfreesboro and Franklin stores to their reputation. KrebsKubota.com is their website. They can help you out with whatever that equipment need is, big or small. If you've got farm stuff to do, like I said the other day, then you can go do farm stuff out there with Krebs Kubota online at KrebsKubota.com.
Whether you're a big better or a small better, BetMGM is going to be the perfect place for you to get started and get some skin in the game. New users, download the BetMGM app, use our bonus code A to Z Sports, and you'll get up to $1,500 back in bonus bets if your first bet misses. If you want to bet $2 on a parlay, if you want to bet $100 on a game, BetMGM is the perfect place for you to do that. They've got parlay boosts. They've got great selection. It's easy to navigate for new users. So if you're ready to get some skin in the game, and I know all of y'all are going to want to bet on the Super Bowl, download BetMGM now and take advantage of this first bet offer and get up to $1,500 back in bonus bets if your first bet misses, only with our bonus code ATOZ Sports.
Visit BetMGM.com for terms and conditions. 21 or older. Tennessee only. New customer offer. All promotions are subject to qualification, eligible requirements. First online room winner wager. Only rewards issued in eligible bonus bets. Bonus bets expire 7 days. And for problem game sport, call Tennessee Redline at 800-889-9789. So, Jack, I'll send you to the chat. We're asking the question, what's your confidence level in Rand Carthon and Brian Callahan to build the Titans into a true contender? We always love doing the confidence level questions on a 1 through 10 scale. I don't know what people are going to say. I'm very curious to see what the chat's confidence is in a group, a duo, Rand and Callie, that's just getting started. Day one was Monday. So what is your confidence level in the Titans being built into a true contender here?
Darren Lee on YouTube is going to start us off today with an 8. Ashley chimes in with a 9. Chris Frazier agrees on Facebook. IR Hochi's at an 8.5. Jay says it's too soon to answer, too early to know. Guy Mann says 7. Shane's at a full 10. Stephen King with a pro score as always at 7.85. Jacqueline says 10. 8.5 from Josh. 8.5 from Pistol Ramsey. Rashid agrees at that number. John on YouTube's at an 8. Brett Bowen is at a 12. I love that, Brett Bowen. Dylan Cole, 8.6. Stanley's at a 6. Ramon's at a 7. A. Silly's at a 9. Curtis is also at a 9. Titans Kyle's at an 8.25 pro score. Dion says 10. Dustin says 7. Yuri on Facebook says 8. Johnny splits the difference at a 7.5. Paul says 9. So does Corey. Albert's at an 8. We've got Imad at a 9. Also, a silly chiming in at a 9. Manny says feeling pretty good about it. He's at an 8. Deborah and Caleb both at 7. 8.5 from Daquan. Dylan's at a 7. Tighten Up says 9. Hassani's at a 10. Caesar's 7. Derek says 10. Let them cook. And I mean, this is the lowest score right here that I've seen is a 5.5. Needs to see the offseason moves first. That's where I want to stop.
Okay.
Because it's hard to really put a number on this thing. I know I'm going to play the game, but it's hard to put a number on it because, look, Rand Carthon didn't have a whole lot to work with when it came to the salary cap last offseason. I said this on the Tighten Up podcast, this is a legacy offseason for Rand Carthon. He's going to be judged on which free agents he brings in this offseason because the Titans have plenty of holes. There's going to be a great crop of free agents at certain positions of need. Rand Carthon's going to have to plug the right guys into those holes. We can't have another Andre Dillard situation. You got to do a little bit better than Sean Murphy Bunting on the outside. You got to bring in guys who are game changers that can help build this core and help set you up to contend down the road. We've only seen 1 year at Rand Carthon, and we haven't seen Brian Callahan as a head coach in this league. So it's hard to be confident without much of a track record between those two, in the jobs that they currently have. So for me, I'm going to go 6.5.
Okay.
I think the chat might have expected me to go a little bit higher, but I think I'm going to go 6.5. Look, at the end of the day, the blueprint is there. Like the Titans were in the AFC Championship game just 4 years ago. So they're not long removed from being a contender, a perennial contender who won back-to-back division titles. So they know how to get there. And they really did it in the most unconventional way that we've seen lately in the NFL by, winning through the run game, winning with tough defense. That's kind of the old school way to win in the league. Well, the Titans built a championship contender with that style. So they've already seen, what they can take from that, from those runs. Well, now
Yeah.
here comes Brian Callahan. Here comes ingenuity on offense. Here comes a new way of looking at the passing game. Here comes developing Will Levis into a quarterback that Ryan Tannehill wasn't. And using his strengths, some things that Ryan Tannehill didn't have in his bag, Will Levis does. Brian Callahan, I expect him to bring the most out of Will Levis, to elevate Will Levis's game, to bring in receivers who can help do that for Will Levis. So you've got this baseline of knowledge from your past runs, which were recent, and now you bring in a new age of thinking. I think it's a perfect match if Carthon can bring in the right players in free agency and continue to hit in the drafts. Carthon's first draft was a massive success. Can he repeat it? And sustaining success in the NFL. We saw John Robinson crush a couple drafts early on, and then it all go to poop because he couldn't sustain that, and he kept missing in the first round. And some of the guys in the third and fourth round that panned out weren't exactly at the positions we need the Titans to succeed in, like Roger McCreary, great pick, but he's a nickel guy. Like, how much impact is a nickel guy going to have on the defense? So if Carthon can continue to draft well and bring in these free agents, I trust Brian Callahan's plan on offense for this team to contend at the top of the AFC. So that's why I'm at a 6.5.
6.5, which I think is a pretty solid number for Jack. That is an optimistic number for you. A lot of people were way above that 6.5 number when you read through the comments in the chat. By the way, like the show. We need way more likes. We got 54 likes on Facebook. YouTube, I believe, is ahead of that right now. I got to refresh the YouTube to where I can see the like stat. But so you said we truly don't know what Rand Carthon's track record is, right? 72 likes on YouTube. We need more than that. So I'm going to play devil's advocate on the Rand Carthon. The jury is out, right? And I believe the jury is obviously still out on Rand because Vrabel was trying to power play his way through some things. Andre Dillard is very clearly, I had somebody DM me yesterday, a Titans fan, say, why is Rand not being held accountable for Andre Dillard? Well, because it's been widely reported that Mike Vrabel was the one who thought Andre Dillard could work for the Tennessee Titans. And you also mentioned that Rand didn't have a bunch to work with when it comes to cap space last season. He had to make cuts that were not difficult cuts to make. I was adamant that cutting Bud Dupree, Taylor Lewan, Ben Jones, and Robert Woods, and whoever else, veteran contracts, that was easy decisions. John Robinson would have made those same decisions, or any other GM would have done that. But it was, what do you have to work with to get quality players to bridge the gap? Andre Dillard was a Mike Vrabel guy. That has been reported. I just mentioned that. Then you look at Arden Key, Azeez Al-Shire, Daniel Brunskill. Those are guys with Rand Carthon connections. I think those three players did their jobs based on their pay, their contract situation, and Azeez was a good leader here. Brunskill was basically a player's coach, got banged up a lot late, but I truly believe Brunskill was a good, smart signing. And Arden Key had a lot of really good moments, but obviously wasn't as good as the other two. Sean Murphy-Bunting's kind of I'm not sure exactly who to give credit for or two on that hiring. But then you look at the draft and Peter Skoronski, Will Levis, Tajay Spears, your first three picks,
That's your core.
Hit, right? Big hits across the board. And then you get into the Josh Wiley showed some good promise. I feel like Josh Wiley was a Mike Vrabel draft pick because of Luke Fickell. Mike Vrabel's best friend was the head coach at Cincinnati, and Josh Wiley knew Vrabes from those days. And then you had Jalen Duncan and Colton Dowell. So we don't truly know exactly how much of the draft picks were Rand's, but from what I've heard, obviously the PR spin that's been working is that Rand was a Levis guy, that they all were Levis people. Like, Rand, Vrabel, and Amy were all pro Levis. So that's kind of how I feel about that. I want to play the Burke Nihill clip again about the meeting, the interview that turned workshop, because that's where I'm going to give my answer from.
Brian was the last in-person interview. It started off as an interview, right? People asking Brian questions, Brian answering the questions. At some point, Amy Adams-Strunk, Kenneth Adams, myself, Rand, Chad Brinker, Anthony Robinson are in the room. And at some point, that interview changed from an interview to a workshop on how they were going to build this thing. It just naturally evolved into it. Ran and Brian went from Ran asking questions, Brian answering questions, to them just riffing and getting excited, and everybody was sitting up in their chair, listening to them talk about, for example, we're not looking for guys that are going to fall into a 1-2-3 receiver bucket. We're looking for what defines our perfect X receiver in this system, what defines our perfect Z receiver in this system, to the inch, to the weight, to the athleticism score. When do you take an exception, and how does a coach need to buy into an exception, and how many exceptions can you have on a team? And these guys were just building a program to end an interview. We hadn't extended an offer yet. Brian didn't know it was his job, but it was the beginning of the next generation of Titans football. That's vision, right? Is them talking together about how we're going to get where we need to go, which is delivering to Nashville a championship caliber team consistently.
So there's Burke Nihill again talking about the interview turn workshop between Ran Carthon and Brian Callahan. And I'll say this. The Tennessee Titans are doing a much better job this year than they did a year ago when it comes to the PR responsibilities following the hire. Look, I do not remember, Jack, in chat, Jack, correct me if I'm wrong. Did we hear anything like that about the interview between Ran, Amy, and Vrabel? And that's what the title of the show is. Burke Nihill gives us an inside look at a perfect marriage of Brian Callahan and Ran Carthon. Because the term that was used for Ran and Vrabel a lot last fall, and when it got bad in the winter, was arranged marriage, right? The arranged marriage between Ran and Vrabel didn't work out. But this feels like a better, true, organic, natural relationship where both sides are clearly invested in the same vision. And, again, this is way better PR and way more PR than what the Titans did a year ago, but it does feel genuine coming from Burke Nihill, who is doing a good job with the pitch.
100%. But when it comes to PR, there's one person in the Titans brass that really needs to step up soon, and that's Ran Carthon. You can make all the right moves behind closed doors, and as long as they're winning, it's fine. But when he sat up there and really kind of just gave nothing, and I understand why he did it. There were a lot of questions still out there. He didn't want to say anything and then have to backtrack it later when they found a new head coach who maybe had a different vision than the idea that they had at that time. But I think that Ran Carthon needs to step up today. I think that the media and Titans fans would really appreciate it if he kind of got more in depth and dove a little bit deeper into what his vision is this offseason and what his vision is with Brian Callahan as head coach, and kind of the marriage that we're talking about today, this perfect marriage that we all hope will work out that way. So I need Ran Carthon to have a big day behind the mic today.
Yeah, and we'll find out what happens. So 1:00 is when Brian Callahan will have that press conference. Will Amy Adams Strunk, I'm guessing she'll be there. Will she, after introducing Brian Callahan, will she take questions for the first time since the AFC Championship game? So, Jack, I'm going to answer the question. The question that we asked is, what's your confidence level in Ran Carthon and Brian Callahan to build the Titans into a true contender on a 1 through 10? You gave us 6.5. I'm going to go a little bit deeper in how I answer the question here. But first, I'm going to tell you everybody about Farm Bureau Health Plans, fbhp.com/ATOZ. fbhp.com/ATOZ is the website to get started with Farm Bureau Health Plans. Farm Bureau Health Plans can help you out in a lot of different ways with your health coverage, because maybe you could get more out of your health coverage. You might be, whatever you're paying in your coverage, it can be better. And that's exactly what Zach Bingham did over 2 years ago, with spending 20% less each month on his coverage and getting better coverage for it. Not having to pay out of pocket to go to the dentist, not having to pay out of pocket for contacts like Zach used to do. Now he doesn't. And Farm Bureau Health Plans invests in their community, which is the entire state of Tennessee, with over 200 plus locations. And Farm Bureau Health Plans have been serving you, the Tennessean, for 76 years. That is incredible right there for Farm Bureau Health Plans. They get the longevity to back it up. and the customer service and the people behind it to invest in you and your family, regardless of what your situation is. So get started at fbhp.com/ATOZ.
If you're looking to get some skin in the game, get started with BetMGM and use our bonus code that you see on the screen right now, A to Z Sports. You'll receive up to $1,500 back in bonus bets if your first bet misses over there. Bet small, bet big, bet on football, bet on basketball, bet on hockey, whatever it is that you want to bet on. BetMGM has it available at all times. You can bet on tennis. Download BetMGM, and new users, make sure to plug in our bonus code that you see, A to Z Sports, so you can cash in on this great opportunity and receive up to $1,500 back in bonus bets if your first bet misses. Do it now. Start this weekend. Get in the green. Set yourself up for some success and win some more money on the Super Bowl. There's tons of props. BetMGM is going to have it all. So download BetMGM and use our bonus code A to Z Sports.
All right. Jack, you were a 6.5 out of
Correct.
10. Confidence level of Rand and Callie building the Titans into a true contender. I'm at a 7.5.
Okay.
I'm usually not the one that's more optimistic in the Tennessee Titans than Jack Gentry of the Tight Up podcast, but I am here. And it's not just because of what I think about Brian Callahan and Rand Carthon. It's what the Tennessee Titans are clearly doing to invest in winning in a different way, winning at a higher level. Today is in yesterday's press release from the Titans was more about the hiring of a new head coach, but it was about the commitment to being a modernized business, a modernized operation of football. It's an offensive-minded guy who has the track record that we've talked about for days, that has worked with all of these quarterbacks and 4,000 passing yard seasons, which has never been done by a Tennessee Titans quarterback. And I think Brian Callahan has 4,000-yard passing quarterbacks under his belt, different quarterbacks, not even seasons, that he's worked with. And then you have the ability to truly set people up to succeed. And that is with what Rand Carthon's new job is. And we'll talk more about this moving forward. But as the vice president of football and general manager, and Chad Brinker's promotion of president of football operations. And so it's about having a young coach, a newly thinking coach that has a football lineage, working with more resources than the Titans have ever had before. It truly does feel like the Titans are coming from the Stone Age to 2024 all in like 1 year. Because you remember, the analytics department didn't exist like 2 years ago with the Tennessee Titans. It did not. Like Vrabel joked, oh yeah, it's Stretch. John Stryker, his assistant. Stretch is the analytics department, right? That was a joke because there was no analytics department. Rand comes in, brings in Chad Brinker. We'll talk more about Brinker at a different show because I think he's a big role in this. And now you get a guy, yes, and now you get a guy that knows offensive football and knows the modern age of football, and Brian Callahan, and how you can put it all together to build a championship contender. Now, you got to execute, and you're only as good as the players you have on the field. But man, we've been talking about why are the Titans so hurt all the time. Well, I truly feel like we're about to have an answer other than, well, you know, football injuries happen. Because anytime somebody would ask Mike Vrabel, what's going on with all these injuries? Well, I believe in our training staff. I believe in what we're doing. Blister to callus, all that stuff. But, you know, football injuries happen. That was the only answer. That's the best answer that could have been given. Now we're probably going to have an answer because why did this football injury happen? Oh, well, probably because we overextended this player, or they didn't use the right acceleration of their speeds and build up and ramp up towards practice, and they have to get to full, all this stuff, right? And so I think this is a big time move for the Titans to invest more in a championship than they ever have before.
I'm so glad you brought up that injury point, and the chat is absolutely on it today. Jason Martinez says style of football's why there's been so many injuries, and Tight Up Tony says Vrabel emphasizes physicality. Terry McCormick had a great point on X, I believe it was yesterday, because, you know, Vrabel wanted his football team to be physical and hard-nosed and win in the trenches. And, you know, to do that, you need two-a-days and you need the pads on in practice a whole lot more. Well, the NFL's moved in a direction where you put the pads on late and you don't really run two-a-days. So we're in this period where Vrabel wanted his team to be this way when the players weren't really geared to do that with what the NFL allows you to do in practice. So because of that, these players, got banged up in practice and started the season behind the 8 ball health-wise, and that led to injuries, and that led to key players missing games. Well, with Brian Callahan, they're not going to beat each other up in training camp like Vrabel's teams did. And they're not going to beat each other up during the week like Vrabel's teams did. So I do expect the injuries to lessen. And I think it's all credit to the style of football that Brian Callahan wants to bring to Tennessee. Sure, you keep the great ferocious defense that you've had for these last few years. But on offense, let's be more stylistic. Let's be high flying. Let's be elite. Let's be precise. Let's not muck it up and beat the hell out of the other teams, and just kind of like chopping down a tree, just sledgehammer by sledgehammer, axe by axe. Let's do it the new way. Let's be creative. Let's out scheme teams. Let's hit them deep. Let's do things they haven't seen before. Let's not just run Derrick Henry 25 times, and make this offensive line churn up front the entire game. So I do think that Brian Callahan's new style on offense will help with the Titans' big injury issues.
Yeah, so Joey says, this is a good comment. He says, the Patriots way was the biggest BS saying. The Patriots way was Tom Brady. That's why it worked. And Joey, beautifully put. Concise, simple, incorrect. Yeah, the Patriots way was Tom Brady was the best quarterback to ever do it. He also had an insanely wealthy wife to where, go look at the Tom Brady contracts in New England. They were not what Burrow, they were not the percentage of quarterback contracts that we see elsewhere of the cap. They were way different because Tom Brady had the ability to earn way crazy money off the field and also was the second in line of top earners of his marriage there. And so he had the ability to do what was best for the team. They could pay him enough to not screw up the market completely and go up there and build around Tom Brady and ride that. That was the Patriot way. Bill Belichick and the Patriot way hadn't worked ever since Tom Brady went to Tampa. You know what did work? Tom Brady in Tampa. And so then all of a sudden he wins another Super Bowl. I think that's a great way to put it. So, the Patriot way, overrated. We are beyond that as a league, I believe, and it is time for the Shanahan style to continue to grow branches off of its tree. And Jack, I don't know if you watched yesterday's show or not, but we talked a lot about trees and coaching trees and growth. So we don't have to revisit that, but I do think this is a new way to win and a new way to invest in a football business. And that's what gives me the 7.5 out of 10 confidence level in these two guys, Rand Carthon, Brian Callahan, to do this.
So scratch everything we just said. We need Will Levis to marry rich people. We need him to marry a Giselle. Where is his Giselle?
Well, Giselle's available.
Giselle is available. You're right. Lou Man says, back to my point about the injuries and how Vrabel liked to win versus, what Callahan wants to bring to Tennessee. He says, we did win, Jack. And sure, they did win, but Vrabel's most successful regular season came at a huge cost. Like, they were missing key playmakers that entire season. Tannehill had to drag a group of misfit wide receivers to the 1 seed in the AFC, and it was remarkable. It was a remarkable coaching job. The defense stood on its head all season long. Tannehill made big plays when he needed to, but those guys, the guys the Titans needed, Julio Jones, A.J. Brown, they weren't healthy for a big part of that season. Derrick Henry as well. None of those guys were healthy. So there was no, they weren't on the same page when they came back, and that hurt the Titans in the playoffs. So sure, they did win, Lou Man, but it came at a massive cost.
They won, and then they stopped winning, and it fell off a cliff. You're
right.
They won in 2021 the last time, and it's been a struggle in the last 2 seasons, really the last season and a half for Mike Vrabel and his organization. And sure, plenty of that was on the John Robinson failures, but plenty of that overall was the issues that were growing and festering inside with the head coach, which brings us to this conversation about what Wesley Woodyard said about Titans head coach Mike Vrabel yesterday. So we're going to play this video and ask you if you buy or sell what Wesley Woodyard said, but we're going to have to play it first because it is a lengthy one. But first, I want to tell everybody about the Bone and Joint Institute. We just talked about football injuries. Well, stuff happens, right? Well, in life, yes, stuff happens. We don't have the analytics on how to not get hurt just going around being a middle-aged, guy or gal out there and having your bones fall apart. But the Bone and Joint Institute will help you out whenever those injuries occur in life. They've helped me out as well. I've had foot injuries with plantar fasciitis, shoulder pain, knee pain. My knee surgeon, Dr. Scott Arthur, is at the Bone and Joint Institute. Great guy. He's a Vol. He's a great surgeon on top of it too. It's been 15 years since he fixed my ACL, and I'm going good now. And the Bone and Joint Institute can help you out whenever an injury pops up, whether it's you, maybe a son or daughter that has a youth sports injury as well. They've got all the resources and the experts under one roof in Franklin, right off of I-65, so it's so easy to get to. boneandjointtn.org.
BetMGM.com is your perfect place for all things sports betting. Download the app for new users. You can plug in our bonus code A to Z Sports, and you'll receive up to $1,500 back in bonus bets if your first bet misses. Go ahead, beat the numbers, beat the closing lines this week, and get in today. The best bettors get in early and beat those lines. So don't wait. Download BetMGM, use our bonus code A to Z Sports, and you'll receive up to $1,500 back in bonus bets if your first bet misses.
All right, Jack, are you ready? I've got 3 minutes of Wesley Woodyard talking about Mike Vrabel, and we'll talk buy or sell what Wood's saying here yesterday morning.
Somehow, man, we used to walk around that building and be like, dude, we got to be careful. We win this Super Bowl. This could make a certain individual really peak, and we might not like that. So it was kind of conflicting views and feelings of, do we want to win a championship with this man? And he turns worse than what he is. So you guys ask, what can Brian learn from Braves? And I think just be yourself. Know that there's a series of events that can make a coach lose a team. It's not just one instance. There's several different things, and I think you look at guys like a Coach Tomlin who remains steady, remains the same in the good times, the bad times. He's still the same guy, and I think that's what's gonna pull Brian up to the ranks of being like, hey, this is my team. I want my players to go out there and kick tail, but I can't win no games if my players are not winning the games for me. And the only way a head coach can do that is if their players know, like, listen, we win the games. No coaches out there on the field playing the game. And I think that was kind of one of the disconnects with Braves. It almost felt like to the players in the locker room. And again, this is me doing research, me being around, me talking to the guys. It often felt like times like Vrabel was the one that was winning the games, and it should never be that way.
Les, I can't let you off the hook with that comment right there, man, because you're talking about the pinnacle of all sports to me, the Super Bowl, and you guys having a players' conversation, text thread, break room conversations about the how and what will happen if you do win it. So I got to ask you this. Was it more about the identity of the coach is what you're saying? So the tone has changed here in Nashville. We're speaking about collaborations, teamwork, them building out, forward thinking. What you essentially said is it wasn't essentially that. It was about me.
Yeah.
Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. That's exactly what the vibe was. I'll give you an example of what was going on. That week leading up to that game, Coach Pease comes in the room, and him and Vrabel had kind of a little back and forth. I don't want to say heated, but they had a little back and forth, whatever. And Pease walks in, sits down on the desk like all D coordinators started meeting off. But before it was a different vibe. It was almost like, fellas, I am, and Coach Pease is a Christian man, God-fearing man, and he was like, fellas, I just want to apologize that, I showed some characteristics of me being unprofessional. And we was like, no, Coach, like, you are D coordinator. Like, we rock with you. Like, we love you. We know what kind of man you are. And then, boom, right in the middle of an apology, Braves walk in. Give me the clipper. Let me talk. This is what we're going to do. This is what we're going to do. And so now you go from, you just interrupted a pure bonding moment with one of the greatest defensive coordinators in the history of the game, and you want to do this.
So there's Wesley Woodyard. There's a lot more you can hear on the 104.5 The Zone YouTube channel there, but that's really what began Wesley Woodyard's going in on Mike Vrabel. And so we asked the question, you buy or sell what Wesley Woodyard said about Mike Vrabel? And I do want to clear this up because a lot of comments on our Facebook and YouTube chats talking about it, unfortunate to hear about the Wesley Woodyard said he didn't want to win to get a Super Bowl. But Wesley Woodyard did tell this to Ramon, Kayla, and Will last night. Quote, I felt bad about the comment about not wanting to win a Super Bowl, but fans don't understand the conversations that go into the locker room. Of course we wanted to win. So I'll play that because that was at the beginning of this. So I'll play that one more time. But Wesley Woodyard did clarify last night to Ramon, Kayla, and Will that of course we wanted to win, but there were about other conversations going on in the locker room about what winning a Super Bowl could have done to the head of their head coach, Mike Vrabel. This was in the 2019 playoffs into 2020 playoffs.
Somehow, man, we used to walk around that building and be like, dude, we got to be careful. We win this Super Bowl. This could make a certain individual really peak and we might not like that. So it was kind of conflicting views and feelings of, do we want to win a championship with this man? And he turns worse than what he is. So
So conflicting views, conversations. Do we want to win a championship for this man and have him turn into worse? Right. So it's not that they didn't want to win. Of course they wanted to win a Super Bowl. But Jack, I'm just going to give some cliff notes of other things that Wesley Woodyard talked about that burned bridges or made players not feel about Mike Vrabel. One of them was the fact of changing up coverages and changing up the defense in that defensive in the AFC Championship game versus the Chiefs that changed the way they were doing things the whole season. Another example of Mike Vrabel taking or not allowing players to have their kids in the locker room post game like they had before. But Mike Vrabel was allowed to have his kids just about anywhere at all times. And that didn't sit well with a lot of players who, dreamed of having their kids in the locker room around, and they had that opportunity previously under Malarkey. So there were some other things there too. And you can go check that out on 104.5 The Zone's YouTube channel for its entirety. But Jack, I'll ask you, buy or sell what Wesley Woodyard said about taking shots on Mike Vrabel.
Wesley Woodyard needs to move to Florida and start selling sandals the way he flip-flopped there. You can't go out and make a statement like that says, hey, we didn't really know if we wanted to win a Super Bowl because that would make Vrabel look good. That's just such a weak-minded and toxic comment. I understand he walked it back, but you said what you said. Wesley Woodyard's been really outspoken at, some of the things that Vrabel didn't do well. And look, I'm not totally siding with Vrabel here either, because Vrabel is hard-nosed. He's stubborn. He gets in his own way. He micromanages. He likes full control. He's a control freak. So his former players are either pro-Vrabel or anti-Vrabel. There's really no middle ground. Mm-hmm. So I want to say that Wesley Woodyard comes off really poorly in that interview. I think that Wesley Woodyard hurt his credibility with some of the things he said in that interview. Now, the Dean Pease conversation, I buy. I totally buy that. I think that Vrabel and wanted to take control. It was a huge game in Kansas City. The Titans hadn't been in that big of a game in almost 2 decades. I do buy the fact that he took over for Dean Pease, because you look at what Dean Pease did after. He retired, and then Arthur Smith got a job in Atlanta, and all of a sudden Dean Pease is unretired immediately. He just wanted to get away from Vrabel. Like Vrabel taking away his defense after a fantastic season in the biggest game of the franchise in about 15 years, that's disrespectful. And that's not what you brought Dean Pease in for. You brought Dean Pease in to run your defense, and you take that away on the biggest stage. That part of Wesley Woodyard's comments I buy.
All right.
The part before about who gets the credit is weak. And
all right. So Nick said Vrabel dismissing Pease, then taking over as DC the next season was the first sign of Vrabel's micromanaging. And I totally agree with Nick there, because you remember in the 2020 season, Shane Bowen wasn't the defensive coordinator, but nobody really knew who it was and all this kind of stuff. And Shane Bowen kind of got hung out to dry as the play caller. He was calling the plays on game day, but he wasn't able to do his job as a coordinator because he was an outside linebackers coach during the week. So that's kind of goes along with that. Andre has a super chat from earlier. Wesley said what a lot of us thought about Vrabel, but is anybody going to pressure him on his comment of them questioning if they wanted to win a Super Bowl? So, to Andre's credit, he was questioned about that, and Ramon Kalen will reach back out to talk about that. And so Jack, I buy what Wesley Woodyard is saying completely. Like, I buy the kids in the locker room thing, and then having his son Carter around all the time. Not taking a shot at Carter or anything, but that's just the reality, right? If you can't have your kids there, but Carter gets to go do everything and walk to the tunnel and do all this stuff on the field pregame, but the limitations are that of the players, that feels disingenuous. Then you have the Dean Pease stuff I absolutely buy, but I totally get what Wesley Woodyard's saying about the Super Bowl stuff. Like of course the players want to win the Super Bowl, but I think people can look in their lives and go to a point to where people have had people around them in life where you say, yeah, if this particular person has too much success, they wouldn't handle it well. Like you have people in your life that say, yeah, that'll go to their head and they would be even more unbearable. And if they're already somebody who's teetering on the unbearable line, and then they get something that is the precipice of their industry, that's going to really inflate that ego even further. And it's like, it's not we don't want to win a Super Bowl, let's sabotage the AFC title game so Vrabel doesn't get a Super Bowl. It's not that. It's man, if we win this thing, y'all know what's going to happen to Vrabel, right? It's that type of conversation that I truly buy of what could have been happening in that Titans locker room. How do you feel about my explanation of that process?
No, I get it. I get it. I just think that Wesley Woodyard came out really strong, and when you do that and then walk it back, it hurts your credibility. And so that's why I think that Titans fans should consider the source here.
I don't think Woodyard hasn't had a whole lot of positives. I don't think he's walking it back, because he's saying he said, I feel bad about the comment about us not wanting to win a Super Bowl. He's saying the conversations about Vrabel he's not walking that back. He's just saying it came out of my mouth wrong about the players not wanting to win it. More of a conversation of, hey, if we win this Super Bowl, y'all know what's going to happen to Vrabel, right? Y'all know how he's going to grow and how his ego is going to get even more out of control, right? That's the conversation. It's a clarification, not a walk back.
I just would.
Because you know what? Because also,
I would buy this if anyone else said it. If anyone else comes out and confirms that this is a true thing. Like,
here's why
Wesley Woodyard loves to bash Vrabel. Like, he's never taken the other side. He's not really.
And what you said earlier, Jack, is so true about you're either a pro Vrabel guy or an anti Vrabel guy. There's really not many people in the middle of it. And he's polarizing. And look, successful people can be polarizing all the time. And that's what Vrabel can be. And so I think why Wesley Woodyard needed to come out and clarify that about the Super Bowl is because of all the names he listed on that defense before he said that comment. I didn't include that in the clip that we played because I didn't want the comment to be 4 minutes long. It was 3 minutes instead. But he named names. Byard, Daquan Jones, Malcolm Butler, Logan Ryan, Adoree Jackson, Brian Arakpo. He named names. And so if Wesley Woodyard's going to name his teammates and then say that, and then it didn't come out how he wanted to, I think it's fair for Wes to come back and say, look, we wanted to win, but we were trying to understand what would happen to Vrabel if we did win. And know that we're probably
I understand where he's coming from. Like, we've all played for a coach that we don't like. And Wesley Woodyard just happened to do so on the biggest level. And it was early on in Vrabel's tenure, and he was about to get a lot of credit. Like, Taylor Lewan has come out on the bus and said that he did not like Vrabel in Vrabel's first year. but because Vrabel was probably trying to instill a culture, and that's going to come with some players disliking you. And I totally believe that there was a group of players in the locker room at all times that probably didn't like Vrabel a whole lot. So I get what Wesley Woodyard's saying. And Jacob's comment says that I'll ask for specific examples. When you give them to me, I'll just say, he doesn't believe you. Jacob, you're an idiot. Continuing to move on. I just think that that's, what happens when you have a hard-nosed coach in the locker room, a stubborn guy like Vrabel. Like, none of these surprise me because Vrabel, he really was his own worst enemy at times. So, sure, he probably pissed a lot of players off in the locker room along the way. But when they were winning, Vrabel probably felt validation. He's probably felt that his way was the right way because the Titans were seeing success on the field. I get why veterans were rubbed the wrong way. But, again, with considering the source, Wesley Woodyard, Wesley Woodyard is only asked for his opinions when people are looking for lightning rods about Mike Vrabel. Like, Wesley Woodyard doesn't come on the zone. He doesn't come on the zone to talk about the Titans' win over the Dolphins. He comes on radio and he does interviews when people are looking to get clicks out of Mike Vrabel conversations. It's just the facts, and they know that Wesley Woodyard's going to come out and be full on anti-Vrabel, and that's
he's not scared of it either. But Wes has been around. Like, Wes talked about meeting Ran, and he's been around the facility the last year, and so it's not like Wes is disconnected like other former players might be after they retire. But I just think Wes is not scared to say stuff. A lot of people, and this has been talked about, that I can't remember who said it. Maybe it was Wes that said this previously, that a lot of people don't have the balls to say the things to Vrabel that he does. So, I get what you're saying. You take it with a grain of salt. I buy it in the fact that I think Wesley Woodyard has a lot of truth to it. And Wes did say that he thought Vrabel, he would give him an A for how he coached the Titans. But he also had some very important advice for new Titans head coach Brian Callahan, who Wes played with the Broncos while Callahan was there. And so there was some good advice in here for Brian Callahan.
Somehow, man, we used to walk around that building and be like, dude, we got to be careful. We win this Super Bowl. This could make a certain individual really peak, and we might not like that. So it was kind of conflicting views and feelings of, do we want to win a championship with this man? And he turns worse than what he is. So you guys ask, what can Brian learn from Braves? And I think just be yourself. Know that there's a series of events that can make a coach lose a team. It's not just one instance. There's several different things, and I think you look at guys like a Coach Tomlin, who remains steady, remains the same in the good times, the bad times. He's still the same guy, and I think that's what's gonna pull Brian up to the ranks of being like, hey, this is my team. I want my players to go out there, kick tail, but I can't win no games if my players are not winning the games for me. And the only way a head coach can do that is if their players know, like, listen, we win the games. No coaches out there on the field playing the game. And I think that was kind of one of the disconnects with Braves. It almost felt like to the players in the locker room. And again, this is me doing research, me being around, me talking to the guys. It often felt like times like Vrabel was the one that was winning the games, and it should never be that way.
So I think that's the national narrative.
I agree. I was about to say
Vrabel, right? Right. Go ahead.
Because the Titans didn't have star players. Like, there weren't any star players. So, of course, the coach is going to get the credit for making an underwhelming roster from a national perspective, win games at a high level, make a run to the AFC Championship game. Of course, on the outside looking in, you say, wow, Mike Vrabel, what a job he's done with that roster, right? But in reality, it was a lot of the right pieces in the right place at the right time that helped the Titans make that run. And I understand why Wesley Woodyard doesn't feel like the players got enough credit, because it did feel like Vrabel, took the brunt of that. And we still see some of those runoff effects now that Vrabel's been fired. Everybody's saying, wow, like, Vrabel's a really good coach. And Titans fans are sitting here like, really? Is that completely true, though? Because the last season and a half, when not a lot of people have been watching the Titans because they haven't been on national TV a lot and they haven't been in the playoffs on the big stage under the bright lights, Titans fans see that this team coached by Mike Vrabel, failed to make adjustments. They blew 5 halftime leads in the second half. He lost, he blew a 7-3 record 2 seasons ago and blew the division. Like, he's done a lot of bad things lately that the national media has really refused to acknowledge because they still believe the Titans don't have enough on the roster to make it work, which, partially is true. But for those teams that were really successful under Vrabel, he took more of the credit because there weren't, Derrick Henry was the only star. Like Kevin Byard. Remember when Kevin Byard was an all-pro and Deion Sanders said he's just a fan? Like, that's a great example of how the national media didn't give a lot of those Titans players enough credit. So I believe Wesley Woodyard, and I feel like his complaints are valid, but at the same time, it's more of the Vrabel bashing that we've seen from him. For me, I want to hear it from somebody else. Like, I hear you, Wesley Woodyard, and I don't believe he's making any of this up. I feel like it all comes from a true place. But when you're just one-sided, the same side all the time against this guy that cut you, it's giving off bitter X vibes to me.
Yeah, and I think and I talked to Buck yesterday afternoon about this, and we're going to do some work to try to gather quotes from former Titans on both sides of this, or somebody, if we can find somebody in the middle, then we're going to try to do it. So we're going to continue to do work on this. And somebody asked, what's the expiration date on talking about Mike Vrabel? And it really depends on what happens if with the rest of the jobs that are out there. Jim Harbaugh is now going to be the Chargers head coach. So there's 4 jobs open: Panthers, Falcons, Commanders, and then Seattle. So what's going to happen with Mike Vrabel there? And I think it'll be very interesting to see if Vrabel gets a job of these 4 or if he doesn't. But Kane says Vrabel is gone. Rather would know who the next defensive coordinator is. Look, we're going to get to that in a second. Timeline is a timeline. We got to make sure that we can talk about it with educated expectations. And then Esco comes in with another super chat. There will be growing pains becoming more modern. Be prepared for a lot of 2 to 3 interception games. Hopefully the Titans still win, but don't get your hopes up. Look, that's another topic unrelated to today's show, but we'll definitely discuss, expectations moving forward. But I said this before Mike Vrabel was fired. I think the Titans can win the AFC South next year. I think they can. They have an opportunity to grow. Why not? I don't think the difference from Houston Texans to the Titans is as gigantic as other division champions, the last place teams. I think there's opportunity in the AFC South for the Titans to do something.
It'd be really nice if Bobby Sloak took a head coaching job somewhere else too, and the Texans had to start over on offense. Titans fans know how difficult it is to sustain a level of success on offense when you rotate offensive coordinators. I don't know that Sloak gets a job this cycle, but if he has another season like he did this year, I believe he'll land somewhere next year. But there's not a team in the division that's a world beater, right? Like, every single team in the AFC South still has major flaws. Like, Trevor Lawrence doesn't look like a great quarterback that everybody anointed him to be after he beat the Chargers despite throwing 4 interceptions. Like, that was ridiculous how they put him on a pedestal. Like, the Colts are going to be steady. The Texans are good, but no one really is elite in this division. So there's still room for the Titans to move up. And hey, if you don't win it, beat up on your division. You're going to be playing a 3rd place or a 4th place schedule next year. You've got some wins built in there. You got a shot at a wild card spot as well. So I think that the expectation next season is making the postseason, and I don't see it any other way.
For sure. All right, Jack, are you ready for the Magic Bucket today?
Yes.
All right. Shout out Wilson County Hyundai. Make them a part of your new car buying process. Go see them in Lebanon. Say hey to Payne Bone for us. WilsonCountyHyundai.com is where to go. And I did see a comment earlier in the show from IR says, "Where's the makeup, Santa?" Well, unfortunately, IR, the weather in Nashville pushed out the Amazon delivery times. So the Santa costume will be at Jack's house by Monday. So next week, Jack will be wearing Santa. And I will be wearing an eye patch when that happens too, because of the same issues of weather just messing everything up, driving me insane. I got nailed 3 out of 10 days there for a stretch.
Watch the Titans drop some massive news on OCDC that Wednesday night, and then we come up on Thursday looking like complete morons in our gear.
Yeah,
I
you
know
got
that's what's going to happen.
Yeah, probably so. All right, so I got the magic bucket right here. I'm gonna pull for me first today. Devin says, "Weird, I got my stuff from Amazon." No, I mean I had an Amazon truck, no joke, stranded on the hill in my neighborhood. Like the dude just said, "Screw it," left his truck on the side of the road and peaced out, and it was there for like 4 days. So it was a little bit different here. All right. I think I've already done this one. So that was the name as many Super Bowl MVPs as I can in 30 seconds, which was a lot of fun. But I've already done that. Okay. If I could have dinner with anyone, dead or alive, who would it be? I hate these types of questions because I always regret them. I always regret how I answer these questions later on because I have to come up with this like on the fly. So I'm going to keep thinking of mine.
I know who
And
mine
then,
is.
All right, this next one is for Jack. Okay, Jack. What is the best appetizer of all time?
Oh wow, this is a great one. Oh man, there's some classics. The chips and queso is steady Eddie, but I don't think it's the best appetizer of all time. You've got what else? What else you got, chat? Help me out here.
No, chat's not helping you.
I know. I just want to hear from them. I want to hear the chat's opinion as well, Austin. I'm very chat focused. I'm
Okay.
chat centric. I believe in the chat.
Steven says "Date Me Chicken" is the best appetizer ever.
Steven, it's the wrong name. It's Marry Me Chicken.
No, that's because you have to have "Date Me Chicken" as
one?
an appetizer before entree chicken.
Okay. All right. Shrimp cocktail, says Scott Weaver. Blooming onion, great answer. Fried pickles. I'm not a fried pickles guy, Eddie. I'm really not. So for me, the best appetizer. Oh, this is tough. I go to Brick Tops, and every now and again I'll get the tuna tartare, but I feel like it's not as good as it would be in Florida, or like somewhere on the coast where tuna actually live, and you're not pulling tuna out of the Cumberland River. For me, I think I got to keep it steady, and this is a boring answer, but I think it's chips with guac, queso, and salsa. You got to have the triumvirate. But I will say, getting specific, bourbon steak fry appetizer with all their sauces that they make in house. That's the best appetizer I think I've ever had.
Okay, so what's your answer? You've named so many things. What is your answer, Jack? What is the best appetizer?
Look, you put me on death row, and I want a meal, and I'm going appetizer. I think I'm going to ask for one last go at the chips with queso, salsa, and guac.
Okay,
that's my answer.
All right. I have my answer for who would you have dinner with, and it's just one person. Who would you have dinner with? Anyone, dead or alive? Who could it be? Just one person, which makes this hard. So that means I'm not going to go anybody that I'm related to, whether marriage or blood, because I don't want to point anybody out and make somebody else mad or hurt somebody's feelings. So I'm going to go towards a professional mindset for the one person I would love to have dinner with, to pick their brain and to hear stories and conversation about the business. Former voice of the Tennessee Volunteers, John Ward. John Ward would be my pick. Why? Because I grew up listening to him on the radio, how he transformed what marketing and advertising was for sports media. Like building the Vol network is what John Ward did back in the 50s, 60s, 70s that turned into like how we do our business now is because of what John Ward was doing in marketing. He was more of an advertiser marketer than he was a broadcaster. And so that's what I think I would go with John Ward.
I like that answer. It's a good answer. Am I allowed to say mine, or is there a chance that I pull this and need to holster?
You pull it, so you can hold on to it if you want.
Okay, I'll hold on to it. Some really funny comments rolling in the chat. Let me go find Nick's comment. It was absolutely hilarious. Oh, is there a recipe for stop nagging me chicken? Then we had. You're gonna get in trouble if your wife's or your girlfriend's watching the show. By the way,
yeah.
And then there's a follow up that says, well, where is this? Oh, he says, Jacob says, It might skip to I'm filing for divorce chicken. Look, it's marry me chicken, guys. Don't get it confused. Stick with the classics. You won't regret it. Roy chiming in, appetizer spinach dip. Spinach dip's a great answer. I just think you get more bang for your buck when you get the salsa, the queso, and the guac. I'm going to regret that answer too, because that's not the right answer. I saw an Aaron Cheney answer. Great answer, very high class. I'm going to end up regretting that answer, but that's what I'm rolling with.
No, you have to. That's fine. All right, guys, that'll be it for us. A lot of stuff today on A to Z Sports because Brian Callahan's press conference is at 1 o'clock Central Time today. Sam Phelan will be live for Titans at 2 after that. It's, maybe 2:33, depending on how long the press conference goes for Sam to have that ready. So get ready for Titans at 2 after the press conference this afternoon. I do know that Brian Callahan will be on 3HL on 104.5 at 5 o'clock today. And then Buck Rising will be live tonight at 8 p.m. Central for A to Z Sports Primetime. So that'll do it for us. Make sure you hit that like button because that goes a long way for us. So please like the show before you go on Facebook and on YouTube. And we'll catch you guys tomorrow morning on a Friday to wrap up the week. Appreciate it as always.